He crossed an ocean for her. She kissed him at the airport. 3 months later, a man died because Suk chose mercy over violence. His empire's collapsing. His associates say he's gone soft. And Desiree just asked the question that'll end them. If you become the monster again, could I still love you? The answer's about to cost everything. If you believe family comes first, even when it breaks your heart, hit subscribe. Only selfish people would disagree. Comment, love means sacrifice, if you think Desiree should go home, or stay and fight if you think she should remain in Seoul. Let's see what happens when the universe tests whether their connection is strong enough to survive the ultimate trial. The cafe in Hongdae was exactly as Desiree described. Cozy, warm, filled with university students typing essays and couples sharing pastries. Suk Myung-soo arrived 10 minutes early, ordered 2 Americanos, and sat by the window where she could see him when she walked up. He'd thought about this meeting for 3 weeks, rehearsed what he'd say, how he'd explain the changes he'd been making. The shift toward legitimate business, the reduction in violence, the questions he'd started asking about whether power required cruelty or if that was just habit. Small changes, but real ones. Changes for himself, not for her approval, just like she'd said. 2 p.m. came and went. By 2:15, his coffee was cold. By 2:30, concern replaced anticipation. By 2:45, he was dialing her number. It went straight to voicemail. He tried the constellation. The hostess said Desiree had called in sick 3 days ago and hadn't been back. No explanation, just said she needed time off. Suk's chest tightened with a feeling he barely recognized. Helplessness. He drove to her apartment building, parked illegally, and walked through the small lobby to her floor. When he knocked, silence answered. He knocked again, harder, calling her name. The door next to hers opened. An elderly Korean woman peered out, suspicious until she recognized him from previous visits. The American girl? The ajumma asked in Korean. She left yesterday. Had so many suitcases. Looked like she'd been crying. Left? Left where? I don't know. She just said she had to go home. Emergency with her family. The world tilted slightly. Suk steadied himself against the doorframe, processing. She'd left, gone back to America, without telling him, without saying goodbye, without giving him a chance to help. He returned to his car, numb, and found himself driving aimlessly through Seoul's afternoon traffic. His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Mr. Suk, this is Desiree's coworker Jennifer from the Constellation. She asked me to give you this if you came looking for her. An attachment loaded. A photo of a handwritten note on cafe napkin. Suk, my mother had a stroke. She's in ICU in Atlanta. I have to go. I'm sorry I couldn't meet you today. I'm sorry I didn't call. I'm sorry for a lot of things. I don't know when I'm coming back. Or if I am. I know you'll want to help. Please don't. This is something I have to handle alone, the way I handle everything. It's who I am. Thank you for seeing me. Thank you for trying. Thank you for being honest about what you are, even when the truth was hard. I hope you figure out who you want to be. D. Suk read it 3 times, her words cutting deeper each pass. She was alone in America, facing her mother's possible death, and she'd explicitly asked him not to help. He should respect that, should give her space, should let her handle it her way. But everything in him screamed to act, to use his resources, to make phone calls, to fix this the only way he knew how, through money and power and connections. For the first time in his life, Suk Myung-soo understood what powerlessness actually felt like. If you've ever felt helpless watching someone you care about suffer alone, comment, I understand that pain. Subscribe if you believe Suk should respect her wishes, even when it destroys him. Only selfish, controlling people would force their help on someone who said no. But the question is, can love survive distance, grief, and silence? 3 days passed like 3 years. Suk tried to respect Desiree's wishes. He lasted 48 hours before his control snapped. He made calls, discreet inquiries through his American contacts. Within 6 hours, he knew everything. Desiree's mother, Patricia Coleman, 56, had suffered a severe ischemic stroke. She was at Grady Memorial Hospital in Atlanta. Stable but critical. Long recovery ahead. Medical bills already climbing past what Desiree's insurance would cover. Suk could fix this with a single wire transfer. Could ensure Patricia got the best specialists, the best care, the best chance at recovery. Could remove the financial burden crushing Desiree while she watched her mother fight for life. But Desiree had asked him not to help. He sat in his office, staring at bank transfer forms on his computer screen, cursor hovering over the confirm button. One click and Patricia Coleman's medical bills would disappear. One click and Desiree would know he'd violated her boundaries. One click and he'd prove he was exactly what she feared, a man who couldn't respect her autonomy even when he claimed to care about her. His phone rang. Kim, his lieutenant. Sir, there's a situation. The Nakamura group is pushing into our Itaewon territory. They're saying you've gone soft, that you're distracted. They're testing boundaries. Sook closed his eyes. His empire was fracturing while he obsessed over a woman who'd left him behind. His associates were questioning his strength. His enemies were circling. This was what happened when you let emotion compromise power. Handle it, Sook said quietly. Use the standard protocols. Sir, the standard protocols would mean... I know what they mean. Do it. He hung up, staring at the bank transfer screen. Two worlds pulling him in opposite directions. Desiree asking him to be better. His organization demanding he be ruthless. He couldn't be both. The cursor hovered, trembled. He closed the laptop without transferring the money. Then he booked a flight to Atlanta. 23 hours later, Sook Myung-soo stood outside Grady Memorial Hospital, jet-lagged and uncertain. He'd crossed an ocean to reach someone who'd explicitly asked him to stay away. He'd abandoned his business during a critical power struggle to chase a woman who'd made it clear their worlds couldn't coexist. It was the most irrational thing he'd ever done. It felt like the only choice that mattered. He found her in the ICU waiting room at 3 a.m., curled in a plastic chair, asleep in yesterday's clothes. Her natural hair was pulled back messily. No makeup. Dark circles under her eyes. She looked exhausted and beautiful and absolutely alone. Sook stood there for a long moment, just watching her breathe, memorizing the curve of her cheek, the way her hand tucked under her face like a child seeking comfort. When her eyes opened, she stared at him for several seconds, expression cycling through confusion, disbelief, and something that might have been relief before settling on anger. What are you doing here? I came to. I told you not to help. I specifically said, I'm not here to help. The lie came out smooth. I'm here to be present. There's a difference. Desiree sat up, slowly processing. You flew to Atlanta to what? Sit in a hospital waiting room. Yes. That's insane. Probably. Sit, you can't just, her voice cracked. You can't cross the world because I'm having a hard time. That's not how this works. How does it work, then? Tell me the rules, and I'll follow them. The rules are you respect my boundaries. The rules are when I say I need to handle something alone. You trust me to handle it. I do trust you. He moved closer, careful, like approaching something wounded. But trust doesn't mean abandoning someone in their darkest moment just because they're too proud to ask for help. It's not pride. She stopped, tears finally spilling over. It's survival. I learned a long time ago that depending on people gives them power to hurt you. And I can't. I can't afford to be weak right now. My mother needs me to be strong. Accepting help isn't weakness. It is when the help comes with conditions I can't meet. Now they'd reached it. The real fear beneath her anger. What conditions do you think I have? Sook asked quietly. That I'll owe you. That this creates a debt I'll have to repay. That you'll use this crisis to bind me to you when I'm too vulnerable to resist. Her voice was raw with exhausted honesty. That's how powerful men operate. That's what Marcus did. That's what my father did before he left. Create dependency, then exploit it. The comparison stung, but Sook understood. Her past had taught her the help always came with hidden prices. I transferred no money, he said. I made no calls to your mother's doctors. I didn't use my connections to get her better care. I simply flew here and sat in this waiting room because I couldn't bear the thought of you facing this alone. If you want me to leave right now, I'll leave. No conditions. No debt. Just let me be here with you until you tell me to go. Desiree stared at him, searching for the trap, the angle, the manipulation. She found none. My mother's stable. she said, finally, voice breaking. But the damage was severe. She'll need months of physical therapy, maybe years. The medical bills are already astronomical. I'm going to have to stay here, work here, help her recover. I can't go back to Seoul. I can't go back to my life there. Everything I built is just gone. Then build something new here. With what? I used my savings to fly home. I'll have to find work immediately just to cover rent and help with Mom's care. I'll be starting over from nothing, again, in a city where I have no connections and… Desiree. He knelt in front of her chair, meeting her eyes at level. You won't be starting from nothing. You'll have your experience, your competence, your fluent Korean, your hospitality expertise. Those things don't disappear because you changed countries. And I'll have you? She asked, the question barbed with skepticism. The Korean Mafia boss is going to move to Atlanta and help me rebuild? The absurdity should have made him laugh. Instead, he considered it seriously. I have business in America, he said slowly. Legitimate business I've been developing. Import-export ventures, real estate holdings. I could redirect my focus. Spend time here. Suk, you can't upend your entire life because… Because what? Because I care about someone? Because I want to try being someone different? Because this is the first real thing I felt in 15 years. The words hung between them, too honest, too raw. Desiree's expression softened, pain mixing with something tender. You don't know me well enough to sacrifice your world for me. Maybe not, but I know you well enough to want to try. If you believe actions speak louder than words, come and show me, don't tell me. Hit subscribe if you think Suk's making the right choice by showing up instead of taking over. Only people who don't understand real love would criticize him for respecting boundaries while still being present. But can this actually work? Let's find out. Suk stayed in Atlanta for 2 weeks. He didn't stay at Desiree's apartment. That would have been too much, too invasive. He got a hotel room 15 minutes from the hospital and showed up every morning with coffee and breakfast sandwiches from the diner Desiree mentioned missing. He sat with her in the waiting room, walked with her when she needed air, listened when she wanted to talk, and respected silence when she didn't. He met her younger brother, Marcus Jr., named before the betrayal, who flew in from Morehouse and immediately distrusted Suk's presence. Who is this guy, Des? Marcus Jr. asked in the hospital cafeteria while Suk was getting more coffee. Someone I know from Seoul. He's being helpful. Helpful how? What does he want? I don't know yet. And that was the truth. Desiree still couldn't figure out Suk's angle. He hadn't offered money, hadn't pushed for intimacy, hadn't leveraged her vulnerability into obligation. He just showed up, day after day, present but not possessive, supportive but not controlling. It was the most unsettling kindness she'd ever experienced. On day 9, Patricia Coleman woke up fully for the first time. Her speech was slurred, her right side weak, but her mind was clear. When Desiree introduced Suk as a friend from Seoul, Patricia's sharp eyes assessed him with a brutal honesty only mothers possess. You the one who broke her heart before? Patricia asked, words slow but pointed. No, ma'am. That was someone else. Good, because that boy was trash, and my Desiree deserves better than trash. She turned to her daughter. This one treats you right. Yes, Mama. Then why you look so scared of him? The question cut through Desiree's defenses. She glanced at Suk, who was giving them privacy by pretending to read medical charts on the wall. Because good treatment from powerful men usually comes with a price tag, Desiree said quietly. And I can't afford the cost. Patricia squeezed her daughter's hand with her good one. Baby, not every man is your father or that Marcus fool. Some people are just good because that's who they choose to be. Let this one show you who he is before you decide. He's who you fear. On day 12, Suk had to return to Seoul. His Lieutenant Kim had called 17 times. The Nakamura situation was escalating. His presence was required. I have to go handle business, he told Desiree at the airport. But I'll be back in 2 weeks. Suk, you don't have to. I want to, if you'll let me. She studied him, weighing options, calculating risks. Finally, what are we doing? Really? I don't know, he admitted. I just know I'd rather figure it out with you than without you. Even if it means flying back and forth across oceans, even if it means living between two worlds, especially if it means that Desiree kissed him then, in the middle of Hartsfield-Jackson Airport, surrounded by strangers and security announcements. It was brief, soft, loaded with all the fear and hope neither of them could articulate. When they pulled apart, she said, 2 weeks. If you come back in 2 weeks, we'll talk about what this is. What it could be. I'll be here. And he was. If you believe consistency proves character, comment actions over promises. Subscribe if you want to see whether Suk can actually balance two worlds, or if one will consume him. Only cynics think love can't survive distance and difficulty. The real question is, what happens when his dark world collides with her fresh start? For 3 months, they existed in impossible balance. Suk spent 2 weeks in soul handling business, then 2 weeks in Atlanta being present for Desiree's life. He helped Patricia with physical therapy exercises, learned to cook collard greens from YouTube videos, attended church with Desiree's family even though he understood maybe 30% of the sermon, became a regular at the West African restaurant where Desiree worked part-time while her mother recovered. In Seoul, he continued shifting his organization toward legitimate operations, sold off protection rackets, redirected drug trafficking networks into pharmaceutical imports. It was slow, dangerous work. His hardline associates resisted, rivals tested boundaries, profits initially dropped. But he persisted. He was building something new, something that might be worthy of Desiree Coleman. She saw the changes, the way he answered late-night calls with exhaustion instead of coldness, the way he talked about phasing out violent operations instead of expanding them, the way he seemed lighter in Atlanta than Seoul, like he could breathe here in ways he couldn't there. "You're happier here," she observed one night over her mother's famous gumbo. "I'm happier with you," he corrected. "Geography is secondary, but you can't keep living in two places forever. Eventually, you'll have to choose. What if I choose both? That's not sustainable. Your business is in Seoul. Your power is there. Everything you've built is exactly what I'm trying to rebuild into something better. Something that doesn't require my constant presence. Something I can eventually walk away from." Desiree set down her spoon, staring. "You'd leave the organization? Completely?" "Not tomorrow. Maybe not for years. But eventually? Yes. I'd leave." "For what?" "For architecture. For the life I wanted before my brother died. For the possibility of being someone whose hands build instead of destroy." "Suk, that's impossible? Naive? Too late." He smiled sadly. "Probably all three. But you made me want impossible things, Desiree. You made me believe I could be more than my worst choices." Before she could respond, his phone erupted with calls. All from Kim. All marked urgent. Suk answered, and Desiree watched his expression shift from soft to stone. The Mafia boss resurfacing through the architect dreamer. He spoke in rapid Korean, too fast for Desiree to follow completely, but she caught keywords. "Nakamura! Territory. Violence. Retaliation required." When he hung up, the lightness was gone. "I have to go back," he said quietly. "Tonight. There's been an incident. If I don't respond, we'll lose everything I've been trying to protect." "What kind of incident?" "The kind where people die if I make the wrong choice." This was it. The moment where his two worlds couldn't coexist. Where the darkness of soul demanded he abandon the light he'd found in Atlanta. Desiree felt her heart crack. "So you're choosing." "I'm choosing to handle my responsibilities. Then I'm coming back." "And if you can't? If this escalates into something that requires the old you, the violent, ruthless version, what then?" Suk stood, already mentally shifting into the role he'd been trying to shed. "Then I'll do what's necessary. And I'll live with the consequences. Even if the consequence is losing me." The question stopped him. He turned back, and Desiree saw the war in his eyes. Duty versus desire, power versus peace. "I don't want to lose you," he said finally. "But I also can't let innocent people die because I'm prioritizing my personal happiness over their safety. The organization protects people, Desiree. Families, workers, communities. If I abandon them to chase redemption, I'm not being better. I'm being selfish." He was right. and she hated it. Then go, she said, voice breaking. Go be who you need to be. But Suk. She waited until he met her eyes. When you come back, if you come back, I need to know who's returning. The man I've been falling for, or the monster you're trying to outrun. What if they're the same person? Then I guess we both need to decide if that's something we can live with. Suk left that night. Desiree watched his plane take off from her mother's porch, wondering if she'd just said goodbye for the last time. If you believe people can't outrun their past without confronting it first, comment, face your demons. Subscribe if you think Suk's doing the right thing by honoring his responsibilities. Only people who've never had to choose between duty and desire would judge him. But the question remains, can he handle this crisis without becoming the monster again? Let's find out if redemption survives real-world consequences. Seoul welcomed Suk Myung-soo back with blood and fire. The Nakamura Group had attacked 3 of his legitimate businesses, a restaurant, a real estate office, a shipping warehouse. No deaths yet, but the message was clear. Show strength or lose everything. His associates wanted war. Traditional war. The kind that ended with bodies and territory secured through fear. Suk stood in his office, looking out at Seoul's glittering skyline, and made a choice that would either save his soul or destroy his empire. No retaliation, he said. Kim's jaw dropped. Sir, if we don't respond. We respond, just not with violence. We use legal channels. We expose their illegal operations to the authorities we don't control. We leverage our legitimate business connections to isolate them economically. We make it more expensive for them to fight us than to negotiate. That will take months, maybe years. They'll see it as weakness. Let them. I'm playing a different game now. It was the riskiest decision he'd ever made, and it failed spectacularly. Within 2 weeks, the Nakamura Group escalated. More attacks, more property damage, then, inevitably, casualties. One of Suk's warehouse managers died in an arson fire. A father of 3, a man who'd worked for the organization for 12 years. Suk attended the funeral, bowed before the widow, and felt the weight of his choices crushing him. His associates demanded blood. His rivals smelled weakness. His organization was fracturing. And in Atlanta, Desiree waited for a man who might not exist anymore. That night, Suk stood in his office with a gun in one hand and his phone in the other. One choice led to violence, power, survival through the old methods. The other led to vulnerability, potential collapse, but maybe a different kind of strength. He called Desiree. I'm failing, he told her when she answered. My attempt at being better is getting people killed. My organization is imploding. The smart thing, the strategic thing, is to return to the old ways, to be ruthless, to survive by any means necessary. But she heard the question in his voice. But if I do that, I lose myself completely. I become exactly what I'm trying to escape. And I lose you. Suk, I can't be your reason for choosing peace over survival. That's not fair to either of us. I know. So I'm asking you, if I handle this the old way, with violence and fear, if I become the monster again to protect people who depend on me, could you still love me? Silence stretched across oceans. Finally, I don't know. Maybe. Probably not. But Suk, that's the wrong question. What's the right question? Could you still love yourself? The answer hit him like a bullet he'd been dodging for months. No. If he returned to being the monster, he'd lose the fragile self-respect he'd been building. He'd lose the possibility of becoming someone worthy of Desiree's love. He'd lose the hope that had sustained him through 3 months of impossible balance. He'd survive, but he wouldn't be alive. I'm going to try something different, he said. Something risky. Something that might destroy everything I've built. But it's the only way forward that lets me live with myself. What are you going to do? I'm going to trust that there's more than one kind of strength. The next day, Suk Myung-soo did something unprecedented. He called a meeting with the Nakamura Group and offered them a partnership instead of war. You want our territory, he told their Oyabun. I want peace. What if we could both have what we need? He proposed a merger. Shared operations, combined resources, legitimate business ventures that would profit them both more than constant warfare. It was radical, unprecedented, potentially suicidal. It also worked. The Nakamura Oyabun, exhausted by his own violence, saw an exit strategy, a way to transition toward legitimacy without losing face. They negotiated for 6 weeks, compromised on territory, established joint ventures, created oversight that prevented either side from betraying the agreement without consequences. It wasn't perfect, but it was possible. And Suk Myung-soo proved that strength could look like negotiation instead of domination. 3 months later, he returned to Atlanta, not for 2 weeks, permanently. He'd restructured his sole operations to run without his constant presence, promoted lieutenants who understood the new direction, maintained ownership but delegated daily management. He wasn't free of his past. The organization still carried his name, still operated in gray areas, still required occasional difficult choices. But he'd built something that could exist without consuming him. When he knocked on Desiree's door, she opened it slowly, searching his face. "Who came back?" she asked. Someone trying to be better. Someone who failed a lot but kept trying. Someone who chose the hard road because the easy one would have cost his soul. Desiree stepped back, letting him in. "That's the right answer." If you believe redemption is a journey, not a destination, comment "Every day is a choice." Subscribe if you want more stories about imperfect people choosing growth over comfort. Only cynics think people can't change. Hit that notification bell if you believe love requires both people to keep choosing each other, especially when it's hard. Suk and Desiree's story isn't over, it's just beginning. Because real love doesn't erase the past, it builds a different future, one choice at a time. Thank you for staying with us through this entire journey. Your support means everything.
You stayed. Through heartbreak and hope, through impossible choices and fragile new beginnings, you stayed with Suk and Desiree until the very end. Thank you. From every single person on the Ebony and Pearl Stories team, thank you for believing that broken people can build beautiful things together. Now I need to ask you for something, and I'm not too proud to beg. The algorithm isn't showing our stories to enough people, and we desperately need your help. All of us here, the writers, the editors, everyone pouring their hearts into these narratives, we're asking you to be our voice. Drop a comment right now telling us what hit you hardest in this story, like this video. Share it everywhere. Send it to your friends who believe in second chances, your family members who love romance, your loved ones who need hope. Post it on your WhatsApp status. Share it across every social platform you have. Tell the algorithm that this story matters. Tell it that Suk and Desiree's journey deserves to reach people who are searching for proof that change is possible, that love can survive impossible odds, that redemption isn't a fairy tale. We pause to ask for subscriptions and engagement because these small actions are how stories like this reach the hearts that need them most. Someone out there is struggling to believe they can become better. Someone is wondering if their past defines their future. Someone needs to see that choosing the hard right over the easy wrong is always worth it. You can be the reason they find this story. Please help us reach them.
Like, comment, share, subscribe.
Be part of something bigger than just entertainment. Be part of hope. Thank you for everything you've already given us by watching. May you find the courage to choose growth over comfort, love over fear, and hope over despair in your own life every single day. We love you deeply. God bless you abundantly.